right, so just adding Gabrielle. All right, she'll join. Hi,
Hi.
how are you? I'm so glad that went smoothly. For some reason, the past like 2 times I've gone live, that like adding the other person did not go smoothly, and I have
Oh,
no idea what happened.
I've never gone live before, so I was waiting. I was like, did she add me? I was like, I didn't know how.
No, this is perfect. You did it so quickly. I'm so glad that we could do this today.
Yeah, me too. I'm very excited.
Yeah. So, what I'd love to talk about today is kind of body image, but also kind of how it's impacted with social media, which obviously we're living so much of our lives on social media. We spend so much time on social media these days. So I think this is kind of like a great topic, and something that everyone can probably relate to as well. But before we get started, why don't you talk a little about who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do?
Yeah. So my name is Gabrielle. I'm a licensed social worker in New Jersey, working in private practice at the Lucan Center. And I specialize in the treatment of eating disorders and OCD and kind of the overlap between the two. That's where really my passion is. And yeah, I like working with adolescents, young adults, and really just focusing on ways that we can overcome our fears by focusing on our values, things that are more important to us, things that are more valuable to us than our fears or our anxieties or our worries.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what would you say, like when you're working with some of your clients, or even maybe in just your experience or anything, what are some like of the biggest body image concerns that you are finding coming up for clients or that they're struggling with?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure to keep our bodies, we get comfortable in our bodies when we're at a certain stage of life. And there's this idea of like, oh my gosh, I don't look the way I did when I was 16 or when I was, in college or when I was before I had kids. And we get kind of wrapped up in, oh my gosh, I need to get my body back. I need to be back to what I was when I was XYZ age or at this stage in my life. And it's very hard for people, myself included, to kind of get on board with this idea of our bodies are supposed to change. Our bodies are supposed to change based on, where we are in life, what we're doing, just normal life, normal growth. And I think that's the biggest hurdle that I come across is, our bodies aren't supposed to look the same as they did when we were 16 years old. And, there's a lot of, we're going to get into the social media stuff, I know, but there's so much comparison on social media of, people look better in bathing suits, or people are doing things that I'm not doing, and people look, perfect on social media, not realizing that that's the highlight reel. Like most people don't actually look like that in real life, and our bodies are supposed to be imperfect. They're perfectly imperfect.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think you bring up a good point with kind of like that change aspect of our bodies, right? Like, I feel like it's either in our teenage years where we're trying to prevent it from changing, like when puberty is naturally supposed to happen, right? Or when in like the later adult years in our 20s and our 30s, where we're kind of looking back on those other stages of being like, oh, well, like when my body looked that way, like life was so much better, or I looked so much better, or whatever it might be. But constantly trying to kind of fight that change that our body is kind of meant to experience.
Yeah.
The other day I was reading, we have like a book club basically, and the book that we're reading right now is like on body image. And one of the things it says is like that, like during puberty, like you're supposed to gain like 20 pounds. And again, maybe not supposed to, but like on average, like that's what most individuals do. And I think that's an expectation that we don't necessarily have for ourselves or for that time in our life.
Yeah.
And it also brought up a good point of just like, this can happen all at once in some people. And this can also happen gradually in some people. Like everybody's different. But I think, again, when we are kind of comparing ourselves to, I want to stay the same, or comparing ourselves to what we looked like before, we're forgetting that some of these natural processes are meant to happen
Yep.
even after we're done growing, like height-wise.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Our bodies are supposed to be continuously changing. It's actually more of a problem if you do stay the same your entire life. That's actually that's a bad sign. Like we're supposed to change. So
Exactly. So I know you brought up like the comparison aspect of social media, but what else do you find? And it could be, I guess, positive, or I mean, maybe if there are positive impacts that social media has on body image, positive or negative, like what are you kind of in addition to comparison, or maybe in more detail around comparison, like what are you seeing as kind of like the positive or negative effects of social media on body image at all ages of your clients?
Yeah. So in terms of, positive experiences, I tell my clients, you
Oh, no.
know, okay, sorry, a call came in. I tell
Oh,
my
no, that's
clients
okay.
all the time, I say, the great thing about social media is that you get to choose what comes up on your feed. Like, you can curate your feed however is best for you, however is, most positive for you. So if you're noticing that, the accounts that you're following or the posts that you're seeing are making you feel some type of way, like making you feel anxious, making you feel, upset, or like you're negative about your body, the great news is that, especially with recent changes to, Instagram and TikTok, is that the algorithm of those social media apps, changes based on what you engage with and what you watch. So you have more control than you realize over what you see on social media. So if you're starting to see that social media is having this negative impact on your mental health, either, do a little bit of a, cleanse of your feed of like who you're following, who's following you, what you're seeing. Or something that I also recommend to clients is I'll say, create a brand new account on one of these social medias and make it be like your body positive, your mental health account, your like, keep your personal account if you want to see what your friends are doing, whatever. I get that. But create an account where like you go on there and the only things you see on your feed are, things that really resonate with you in a positive way about your body, about your mental health, about your overall wellness, and let that be kind of your outlet. If you're having a particularly difficult body image day or particularly difficult mental health day, know that you can go to this, positive channel of social media and see things back to back to back that, are congruent with your recovery or the positive mindset you're trying to have.
No, that's such a great idea, because sometimes too, like when it's a more personal account, right? Like, we might easily get like tied into some other pieces of information out there, or other like posts or things like that, which isn't a bad thing, right? But at the same time, you want a safe space that you can go to when you're having that type of day.
Yep.
Or you're just in that type of mindset, that so any like even neutral stuff on social media might not be even supportive for
Yeah.
you.
Mm-hmm.
So I really love that idea. And I also think with like social media, it's not only the comparison's huge, right? And it brings in like a lot of unnecessary food advice or unnecessary body advice or unnecessary like pressure about like what our body should look like. But I also think because a lot of these apps are video and picture based, they tend to emphasize our looks more than we should, or make us emphasize our looks more than we should, right?
Yep.
It kind of leaves out like who we are. Even though that's important and that's present on the apps in terms of different ways, it's not the main focus of the apps. Yep. Right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and I think, social media is set up where we're scrolling, we see a picture, and, we base our interaction or, our perception on the picture. And, some people write really nice captions, but sometimes the captions get completely lost because our brains are kind of like, oh, picture, picture, picture. So if we're, just not really mindful about our social media use, it could have more of a negative impact than a positive one.
It's so true. It's so true. And I think too, like kind of that mindful aspect of our social media use. Now there's like a lot of coaches that are on social media and a lot of like entrepreneurs on social media, whether they're in like the fitness world or the modeling world or things like that, which is awesome in terms of like small businesses. But I also think sometimes for when you say like the mindfulness aspect, we forget that these people, like this is their like business, this is their brand, this is like what they are able to devote like a lot of their time and money to, because it's how they're making a living. And so it's natural that they might, I don't want to say natural always, but like it might make more sense that they have a six pack if they have more time to devote to that, or you know what I mean? Like they have more time to make a nice, pretty salad at lunch, or because again, this is kind of like what they are doing for a living. But I think sometimes we can kind of feel that pressure of like, oh, I should be doing this, or I should be looking like that, even if we're working like 40 plus hours a week at a totally unrelated job. But like you said, it's kind of that highlight reel in a lot of ways.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, it's absolutely a highlight reel. And also people edit themselves. Like people are very, kind of not always authentic on social media, and it's become, you know, difficult to discern what's real, what's not, and we can really get, you know, wrapped up in some really stinking thinking if we kind of get too deep into what people are looking like on social media, what they're doing, and comparing ourselves to that.
No, it's so true. It's so true. So with that, kind of with social media, so you had the tip about like maybe creating a separate account that like is more supportive, that you feel like you can go to when you're having harder places, making sure that you're filtering through your account, like muting different accounts, unfollowing when necessary. I think you can also like tap those three dots that says like not interested in this one,
Yep.
or something like that. Any other like tips for so like while you're on social media, like making sure that when you're on social media, you're really making sure it's supporting a healthy body image than working against it? Any other good tips that you have?
Yeah, so it's something in terms of, you know, when you're posting yourself, something that I like to kind of talk about with clients is, this goes into a little bit of like an act-based perspective, acceptance and commitment therapy. This idea of, you know, what were you doing in this moment, in this picture, that was important to you, or valuable to you, or memorable to you? So, you know, maybe you took a picture and you're having a difficult time with how your body looks, you know, your body image, whatever it may be. But instead of, you know, focusing on what you look like, or, you know, your flaws, or whatever you perceive about what you look like, focus on, you know, what were you doing in that moment that was so memorable that you were like, I need to take a picture of this. And remember the people you were with, what you were doing, what was important to you, what was valuable to you about that experience. Because those values and those sort of, you know, committed actions associated with the values, the things that are important to you, essentially, they're going to supersede, and they're going to, you know, last a whole lot longer than how you're thinking about your body in that moment. That feeling will pass, that discomfort will pass, and it might not feel like it in the moment, but there will come a time when you look back at that picture and you're like, wow, that was like such an awesome day. I remember I wanted to memorialize it. I wanted to take a picture of it. I wanted to remember it forever. And the body image thoughts will get quieter as time goes on. So, you know, people sometimes struggle with that. Obviously, it's easier said than done. If we see a picture of ourselves, our first thought is, you know, get that picture away from me. Like, I don't like it. I don't want to see it. I don't want it to be on social media anymore. But there was a reason you took that picture. Something, you know, important was happening. Something valuable was happening. And if we can go back to that and remember that, I think that can be a really powerful way to, you know, keep ourselves present and keep ourselves in a positive headspace when engaging in social media.
I think that's so true. And I think that's such a good point to remember, in terms of just like, you know, we're documenting this moment in time for a reason other than just to look at our body.
Right.
A much more important reason than to just look at our body, and kind of really capitalizing on that and what that is for us. I think you brought up another good point too, is that like, we always think that body image is more reflective of like what we actually look like, when really it's how we're actually feeling about our body. And just like feelings day to day can change, our body image and how we feel about our body can change very easily day to day. I don't know if you've ever had the experience, I know I have, where like I'll get a picture taken and I'll be like, ugh, I don't like that picture. And then like a year later, I'll look at that picture and I'll be like, oh my God, this picture's fine. Like, why did I not like it? And there's no like difference in it.
No, that comes to mind, like right away as you said that, I was like, I have a picture that comes to mind. There's a picture, you know, of me, my fiance, and our dog. We're at a pumpkin patch, and I remember seeing that picture the first time it was taken, and I was like, this is a terrible picture of me. Like, I hate it. I hate the way I look. And now it's hanging on our fridge, and it's one of my favorite pictures ever, because that was such like a nice, wholesome day, and it was so fun, and it's like, it's one of my favorite pictures. And, you know, I remember being self-conscious about it, and, you know, having a difficult time with that picture when it was first taken. But like you said, like, year or two later, that's not what I'm remembering about that picture when I look at it.
Exactly. So we never know how we're going to feel about something, you know, a week later, a month later, a year later. And we want to expect that these feelings are going to change, right? Knowing that they're more based on feelings, not based on actual truths, and that therefore there's going to be some fluctuation in there.
Yep.
So like, kind of aside from social media, aside from like picture taking, is there any, like, if you had like one of like your favorite tips for clients that are kind of struggling with their body image in the moment, is there anything that we haven't spoken about that you would recommend to them?
I'm a big believer in looking at your body as your home, like treating your body as like you would treat your home. And obviously we like to take care of our homes. We like to, you know, take care of our homes and the space that we live in. And our bodies are our permanent homes. Like that's the only permanent home we'll ever have. You know, we'll move, we'll relocate, but we take our bodies with us. Like we live in our bodies forever. So I think if we can look at it that way, it invites a element of self-compassion into the discussion of like, this is my body, this is my home. It's working so hard every day to keep me alive, to keep me functioning, to keep me, you know, standing on my feet. And the least I can do is at least give it a little bit of, you know, respect and understanding and try to be compassionate towards this thing that's trying to take care of me. And I also, you know, continuing on with this analogy of your body being your home, I've said to clients before, you know, there's days where maybe your entire house is a mess and you're like, there's no way I can take care of my entire house today. But you might clean up like one room of your house. So maybe, you know, you're having a particularly bad body image day. You're like, there's no way I can like tackle all of my issues today, that like all my negative thoughts, all my, you know, all my cognitive distortions. But maybe I can, you know, brush my hair today and, you know, kind of take care of that part of my home, take care of a little piece here and there. And again, just invites in that self-compassion, you know, looking at your body as your home, looking at your body as something that's working for you and not working against you.
I love that. I love that because it's so true. And I think we all know in terms of like our homes or our rooms or like the space that we live in, that some days like we just have the mental energy to take care of one piece of it, right? Whether it's like wiping down the counter or picking up like something on the floor, but that's it. You know what I mean? And that's okay. And like that's like the best that we can do in the moment. And that's taking care and respecting our home with the capacity that we have that day. So I agree. And I think you also bring up a really good point with this analogy too, is that like we don't necessarily have to always love our home. Like that doesn't necessarily have to be the goal, but appreciating what it's giving to us, respecting it for doing all the work that it's doing for us, and just trying to at least feel neutral about it, I think can be huge. And just taking care of it and nourishing it, even if we're just not ready to like fully embrace it, that's okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
No, this is awesome. So we talked about a lot of things so far. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think would be helpful for people to know or for people to keep in mind?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. Do you have anything? Is there anything that you're still?
I don't think so. I mean, if anyone has any questions that have popped on, we're happy to answer them. But I think we did cover a lot, which was good. Yeah. I think you had so many great tips on like social media and kind of how to protect yourself and your body image while being on social media, but also in day-to-day life. So I really appreciate you doing this with me today. I think it's so helpful. And hopefully we can do it again another time too.
Yes, absolutely. I had a great time being here. Thank you for having me.
All right. Take care, Gabrielle.
Bye.
Bye.